Welcome to The Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, my name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, I have the amazing Gwydhar Gebien, and she is an author, and she has Enfant Terrible. So please grab your seats and get comfortable as we discuss the rebellious and provocative book. Gwydhar, thank you so much for coming. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time to come up here and spread your message with my audience. Your book dives heavily into topics like career redemption and broken families. Were any of these themes drawn from your own personal experiences?
Yes and no. So the book is a trilogy that tells the story of a frontman for a metalcore band, which is not an experience that I have had in my life, regretfully. But it does also deal with themes of finding your place where you fit in your own family, and that tension between what you want to do in your life as a career and the relationships that you have in your life with family and friends. And a lot of those elements come from my experience, even if the trappings of the story don't.
So what inspired you to write this beautiful book?
It would be I almost feel like I can't take credit for it, because the main character, Damon Warner, sort of appeared in my head, fully formed, and began screaming in my ear. And if you've read the books, you'll know this is not a voice that can be ignored. Mm-hmm. And just wanted his story told. And so I worked on it for about 13 years to get the story out. But all that time, it was like having a friend in your head that was recounting a story to you. And then while discovering this character's story, I was also going through things in my own life and finding parallels between them. And it really helped me through a lot of difficult emotional times and tricky, career moments and relationship moments, and ultimately turned out to be a very helpful project to work on. So
helpful because you find that it was a guide or a healing and cathartic thing to do during those tumultuous time for you?
Yeah, it allowed me to take some of my own experiences and try to see them from a different angle through another character. And because I knew how the character's story needed to go, it helped me find my own way in ways that sometimes are not as obvious when you're in your own life. You don't get that overview like an author has of a character to be like, it's all going to be okay, it's going to work out. There's a reason why you're going through this, which I found very reassuring to sort of tell myself, okay, there is a reason I'm going through all this, and it's difficult and not much fun, but it'll ultimately be good for me.
That's a beautiful message for someone listening who is going through some hard times or some tumultuous experiences, and you're wondering what is going on, and you can't see the big picture. Just remember that when you're in the picture, it's hard to see the full picture. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so thank you for, bringing that to our attention, because a lot of times we get frustrated because we can't see how it's going to end. And it's hard. It's really tough. It's not that you're frustrated. It's because it's hard. You're going through hard things.
Well, and another thing I've realized too is that with a character like the protagonist in the book, as a reader, you love him, and he's a wreck. He's just failing in ways you never thought it was possible to fail, but you still love him. And to me, that was helpful also in the times in my life when I did feel like I was failing, to realize that there are people outside myself who do care about me and still love me, even though I'm a wreck. That it helped make it more real to me than just being told, yes, there are people around you that love you, you know.
When you say you were a wreck, can you give us a little bit more context into what do you know, what was going on, why you say, you know what, I was a wreck?
Sure. Yeah. So I've throughout my life had gone through various cycles of depression and anxiety. And in the years when I was really working on these books in the most intensive way was also when I was going through some of my most intensive depressive phases. And it was, you know, career related and identity related. And there was a lot of elements all coming together at the same time to, you know, cause it. And I knew I needed to get sort of therapeutic help and work through all these things. But when you're in sort of your biggest crisis moments, it's the hardest to get the help you need, and trying to make that choice. Ultimately, what I've learned through the past couple of years is that the reason I kept cycling into these depressive phases is because I'm actually on the autism spectrum and have a little bit of ADHD of an inattentive type. So it's not the like restless, high energy type, it's the daydreamy type. And I just never knew. And I always felt like I was just kind of bad at being a human, and I couldn't figure out why.
Mm.
And having that you know, frame to reframe everything through really helped relieve a lot of that pressure and guilt and feeling like I was failing at life. But until I had that frame, there was a lot of struggle and failure and big emotions that I didn't know where they were coming from or why.
Thank you for being so transparent and sharing that, because when we have difficulties, especially as women, when we have struggles, we're so hard on ourselves. And especially if you're not quite sure what's going on, you're not sure it's, ADHD, you're not sure if you're on the spectrum, you're just having a hard time, and you're so hard on yourself, you start judging yourself and comparing yourself to people that are within your sphere, and people that expect you to be a certain way at a certain time and to do certain things in at a certain age, and you're struggling and you're so hard on yourself. And thank you for mentioning your diagnosis of depression and ADHD and that you're on the spectrum. How do these influence your creative process in your storytelling?
I feel like now that I know, I can look back on things that I do when working creatively and realize, oh, that's why I do it that way. Especially when writing, I studied theater and filmmaking in undergraduate and graduate. And one of the things they do is you break down scenes and try and figure out what the character wants and how they're trying to accomplish it, and goals and obstacles and so on. And I find myself really doing that a lot in writing, in each scene and sequence of what does the character want and what are they trying to accomplish, which is sort of a very manual way of going through life and figuring out how people are interacting. But it was really helpful to me as someone for whom social interactions are not always intuitive. Sometimes they are,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I'll be in a situation where I can tell there's a subtext going on that I'm not natively picking up on, and I have to kind of reason my way through why someone's reacting the way they're reacting, or why they're pushing the way they're pushing, like they're trying to accomplish something. That again, now in retrospect, that I have the advantage of knowing this is why my brain is working this way, has been very helpful to then apply it to a story or a character, being able to copy from life and paste onto a page.
Right. So what are some of the challenges of writing, and what are some of the challenges of writing about the anti-hero, the person that is, supposed to be the villain? And how did you balance making Damon more relatable despite his flaws?
Well, I think the trick to writing a anti-hero character is that you're not trying to make a character that's likable necessarily,
Right.
which is often one of the most difficult things about writing a hero is you want them to be likable, and that takes away a lot of their flaws and weaknesses.
Mhm.
Anti-heroes can have plenty of flaws and weaknesses. It's great. But you do still need to give them enough heart that a reader wants to relate to them and care about them, even as you're watching them do things that you wouldn't choose to do yourself, and you are aggravated to see this character doing because you know it's not going to be good for them. So that's really the challenge, is finding that balance between the not being likable necessarily, but also being lovable, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So your book dives into a lot of different topics like career redemption and broken families. Were any of these themes um, because of experiences with, not your personal experiences, but experiences with other people that you love and admire, and you wanted to understand their situation or experiences more?
Probably cumulatively, yes. Although I don't have one particular person that I can point to and be like, yes, this is the person that I was really watching struggle and go through a lot. But it feels like something I've seen enough people go through and really felt for them, that it all came together as this character for the book.
I know that you're also a filmmaker. Were you seeing these characters as developed and are developed like you're going to create a film while you were writing?
I would love to see these characters on the screen. And often the comparisons that I give for when people try and ask, what's the book like? Instead of other books, I compare it to television shows like Shameless and Californication. And so I do have a very sort of cinematic sense of them in my head. And when I'm writing the scenes, a lot of times it's difficult to translate the image in my head to words and figure out how to get that across on a page. But yeah, I feel like they would do well on a screen. If anyone's out there and wants to help me develop it, yes.
Thank you. So Damon Warner, he is the frontman of the band, metalcore.
Yeah.
And the book explores or talks about how the rock band or rock stars have this allure. What do you think drive this kind of fascination?
I think we really are drawn to celebrities and rock stars and frontmen of bands and so on because they're larger than life, and they get to live a little bit outside the norm that we all experience, in a good way and a bad way. In a good way, like, they have this creative energy and freedom and connection with people that is very difficult for us sort of on a lay person level to even wrap our minds around. Like, when I talk to someone, even if I put it on the internet, it reaches, I don't know, a few thousand people. If a frontman for a band says something and puts it online, it reaches millions across the world, and that's a much bigger connection potential than I understand. But at the same time, being outside the norm doesn't give you all the sort of guidelines and padding that we have in normal life, and so it's really easy to spin out and go wild and burn out for these big personalities. I don't know if that answered the question. I sort of went on a tangent.
No. It answers the question because, we're fascinated, and I guess that one of the reasons is because we are enthralled by the reach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. You also talk about redemption and renewal, and that's a significant theme in this book, Enfant Terrible. And I'm going to say the name so that the audience can remember it, so they know what to do and what to order and what book they're picking up this week. So what message do you hope that a reader take away from, or the most important message you want the reader to take away from Damon's story?
Well, the element of Damon's story that comes through once you get past all the pyrotechnics of the band and the troublemaking is really that he's trying to find where he belongs in his family and come to terms with the sense he has of being an outsider in his own family. And there's this element of he's a bit of a unreliable narrator in that he believes he's not worthy to be part of the family, and that that he's not loved by his family, which is not necessarily true for the point of view of the rest of his family, but he's not in a place where he can hear it. Mm-hmm. So really that's the message that I hope people get from the story and take to heart is seeing a character overcome his own belief about himself and his relationships to become a better person through that.
You said something very poignant just now, because he's telling himself one story and his family is saying another. He's telling himself that he's not worthy, he doesn't belong here, they don't like him, they don't love him, and he's the problem, when his family is feeling differently and is not sending him this message, but because of the place where he's brought himself to. And sometimes our negative thoughts can speak so loudly that we cannot hear the love and the acceptance that we need to hear from our groups around us, especially our family and friends. So that's one thing that I really wanted the audience to hear. And I just wanted to reiterate that it's important for us to speak positively to ourselves, and that the voices in our heads are so much louder. What we say about ourselves is more important than what others say about us.
Mm-hmm. And what you're looking for is what you'll find. So if you're looking to be told that you belong, you'll find that you belong. And if you're looking to be told that you don't, you'll find reasons to believe you don't. So.
Wow. So you heard it, you guys. What you're looking for, you will find. That is so true. I remember when I was in high school, there was a play, a Shakespeare play. I cannot remember the title of the play right now, but I remember that that in the story, one of the I'm trying to remember the name. Anyway, one of the persons in the story planted the wife's handkerchief on someone else, on another soldier, and then told the husband that, your wife is not being she's not being faithful. And so he started to look to find signs that she's not being faithful. And every single where he turned, he started to see, to him, it was, oh my God, this woman is so horrible. She's unfaithful and I can't trust her. When in fact, it was just someone using him to get their own agenda. And so he found, because he was looking for betrayal, all he kept seeing was signs of betrayal. So, to your story, yes, what you're looking for, or your point, what you're looking for is what you will find. So why not look for the things that you do want instead of looking for the negative? Why not change the narrative and shape a story so that you can see the good in what you've gone through, or see the best out of the situation?
Yeah, exactly. It might be the Winter's Tale. I know that that's an element in Winter's Tale, but I'm sure it's in several Shakespeare plays.
It's gonna come to me because I didn't plan on on talking about that, but I remember that piece, and it's so important for us to look at life in the way we and the light that we want, to see things in a positive light, because we really shape our lives with our thoughts, with our actions, because our thoughts are going to shape the actions that we take. And you can really shape who you become by speaking to yourself. And if you're hearing negativity and you're hearing that you're not worthy, you're going to make choices that reflect that. But if you're hearing that you're amazing and you're powerful and your words matter and that your success is, coming your way if you work smart for it, you tell yourself positive things, positive outcomes will appear. Not that, bad things don't happen and we won't get challenges, but the more positivity that you pour into your life, the more positivity you get out of it.
Right. Yeah. One example that I ran into this past year was we got a flat tire in our own driveway. Don't know how. It was just something flat. And we took it to the tire store. And of course, it was out of warranty by about 15 minutes, so we had to get new tires. And since we were getting one, we had to get all four. And it was a big expense for one flat tire. And it would be real easy to have taken that moment and been like, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen to me and look how bad it is and whatnot. Or we could take the point of view of look how lucky we are that, we've got a flat tire, we need to replace all our tires, but we're in a position to do so, and it's not going to make us choose between paying rent for the next month. Like, that's a privileged position, and we're lucky to be in it, even though we're going through this rough time. And trying to put it in that perspective is really helpful to frame it and not let it become more than it is.
Yeah, we're going to get challenges and things are going to happen. And you could scream and kick and say, hey, we're 15 minutes out, or we're 5 days out, or whatever it is. And kick and scream and waste your energy. Or you could just, say, you know what? We get to buy tires and we get to continue our journey and we get to have this great trip.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So what are some challenges that you face as a filmmaker, as an author, when you're creating a new world?
Well, it's slightly different between filmmaking and writing in that filmmaking is a very collaborative process, and it takes a lot of people to make a film. And it makes a much richer world in that there are so many more elements that can go into it. You get the music, you get the images, you get color, you get movement. And in writing, you get words on a page, and it's going to be black and white, and that's all you got. But you can explore the worlds differently between the two. And it presents interesting challenges in each one, because for writing, the author gets to be God and control every element of the story. Whereas in filmmaking, it's really about being able to communicate with your team members and get everyone on the same page, even if you're not the director. Like, if you're just part of the team, making sure you're all working on the same project, so to speak. Yeah, that's the.
So how does your experience and love of Renaissance and fairs, how does those influence your creativity in storytelling?
That's interesting question. It seems like something that wouldn't be a very direct influence, certainly on a book like Enfant Terrible, where it's all about contemporary Chicago and bands and so on. Although there is a character that works at the Renaissance Fair in the books.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, it is an interesting crossroads of people that both work there and attend Renaissance fairs, and this creative environment in which there are sort of very general parameters around what what kind of world can be created there. It's nominally Renaissance, but you also get people who come dressed up as Jedi or dressed up as Klingons or dressed as fairies, and everyone sort of gets to bring their own creative energy to it in a way that just sort of melds together in a unique kind of conversation. Because again, part of the enjoyment of going to a Renaissance fair is the interaction between the other people there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very encouraged to have interactions both with the people working and with other guests. And it makes it's sort of a play pretend that adults get to do, which we don't get to do a lot in our lives once we reach adulthood. So I feel like that's very special to get to do.
Yeah, I love experiences that bring out more play in me, because as adults, again, we don't get to do that. So yeah, I do find that when I have experiences that encourages play or more youthfulness, or things that we expect from children, it really helps us, especially if you have mental challenges. I believe that play supports or give us a more healthy mental health. So do you find that creating art serves as a form of therapy?
For me, certainly it does. It's very relaxing and soothing to my mind to work on artwork. And sometimes when I get agitated or I've been around too many people or absorbed too many experiences without having time to digest, I'll need to sit and do some artwork in a journal or draw a picture or something, just to give my brain time to sort of come offline and let the background processes all condense it all down. So it's easy to overlook the importance of creative pursuits or art or play as being frivolous when they're not. They're just not as easy to quantify or monetize that our left brain sort of grown-up mind wants them to be. We want to be able to be like, okay, we are going to accomplish a thing, and meanwhile our brain's like, but we just want to cut up little pieces of paper and put them together.
Yeah, so we have to try to incorporate playfulness in our big ideas or big, accomplishments, whatever you're working on. See how you can incorporate play, because our inner child is always screaming to come out, which will help us and empower us in our current situations.
And it gives you opportunities to look at things and experience things that are easy to gloss over as an adult. I'm terrible about picking up rocks. Like I just love collecting. This one's got little holes in it, and I saw it and I had to pick it up. But as a grown-up, I would have been like, there are rocks on the ground, I don't need to stop and look at them. But sort of the inner child in me wants to pick things up and handle them and really look at them closely, which is also just important to slow ourselves down and take in these details of the world.
Yeah. You mentioned slow yourself down. You mentioned that you have the ADHD and some depression. And because I know for myself, I think I've never been diagnosed, but I really believe that I have some ADHD, because it's really hard for me to focus on just one thing, and I'm always doing a number of things at the same time. So slowing yourself down, do you find it challenging?
Sometimes, yes. Again, the variety of ADHD I have is more about daydreaming and inattention than energy. And if I'm engaged in something, I will be very focused on it. And it's great. And if I'm not engaged in something, it's almost painful to make myself pay attention. So I've discovered now that I'll be sitting in, say, a Zoom meeting, and I will think too loudly and I won't hear what's going on. Like the thought was louder than the words coming in my ear. So it does take work to guide that focus and really be aware that, okay, now I need to focus on this thing, not that. And yes, it's not something that comes naturally, but we got to put the energy into it. So it's less about slowing down from the attention standpoint, but life is just so busy in the modern world, and there's so many things vying for that attention that it's hard to slow down the input that you get from the world. And that's the trickier part.
Do you find that your condition is both an obstacle and a superpower?
I would agree with that. Like, I like to think of it as being a different neurotype rather than being a disability per se. It does come with challenges, that's for sure. And it does take a lot more energy to, like I say, reason through social interactions or focus the attention deliberately. But also things like when my mind goes off in one of these daydreams or, associative thought paths, comes up with a story like Enfant Terrible and a character, and it brings to life a world, which is also very fun and satisfying. It's the trickiest part is finding the balance between the two and channeling one to fit the other and creating channels in the other to allow the condition to flow through them, if that makes sense.
How do you see your neurodivergence contributing to your unique voice as an author?
It's a little hard for me to tell from the inside. And it's a little hard to tell also because the diagnosis is fairly new. It's only in the past 4-ish years. That it's hard for me to tease apart what comes through in the voice that's the result of neurodivergence and what is just the voice that I've created. Probably they're so combined as to be, you can't really tease them apart, but it's a little hard for me to then define what qualities one is giving the other. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. What do you hope the readers who might be neurodivergent take away from this book?
Mostly that, again, just because your brain isn't working in the way conventional expectations are telling you it should, doesn't mean it's not working, and not to mean that it doesn't work for you. Like, you can be very successful, you can be very engaging and charismatic, and so again, the character Damon goes through a bit of a discovery of his own mental state, and he has some things that I don't want to spoil from the book, but that come to play and give him a frame with which to look at his own experiences of the world. But it doesn't make him any less himself to discover it, and it doesn't make him any less of himself to adapt to handle it, if that makes sense. Like, once he gets his diagnosis, he doesn't stop being who he is. He just learns to channel it constructively instead of constantly spinning out and constantly causing trouble and being a wreck.
Damon Warner is an intriguing character. He's a rock star, and he embodies both the allure and the chaos associated with fame. Why do you think society gravitates to these characters, yet we know they're deeply flawed, and we know that perfection is not realistic. And yet when we look at these characters, I know for myself, we always see them as, oh my God, they're so perfect in the way that they present their art. Why do you think we always gravitate towards these larger than life, yet deeply flawed people with these high and have these high expectations?
I think it has to do with the fact that the relationship between an audience and a performer exists somewhere between the two. It's not just what the performer puts out into the world, it's also how we are perceiving it and the lenses through which we're perceiving it. And so, like you say, these are larger than life figures and that inspire us. And like the image we have in our head of the performer we're seeing on stage or on screen isn't really the truth of that person. It's our impression of them. So it's easy to fall in love with this beautiful and talented and charismatic and alluring personality without really knowing the person behind it.
Yeah.
And we as audience members kind of have the advantage of being able to just believe in that dream of the person, whereas the actual performer has to experience being the person,
Right.
which is a lot harder. So
yeah, because the actual artists are a person, they are making sacrifices to give us the results that we're seeing, and we're not seeing that. So we're not, taking into consideration that these people, they look and sound or produce excellent work that look perfect, but they're making some really serious sacrifices. What sacrifice did Damon have to make for his journey?
in the course of it, he has to give up on his worldview again of that he doesn't fit in. And there is a storyline that runs, a plot line that runs through the story in which he forms a relationship with he gets a girlfriend who has a 5-year-old daughter, and becomes very attached to both the girlfriend and the daughter, and sort of becoming a surrogate father, and ultimately has to make a choice to do right by these individuals in a way that means sacrificing his own wants and needs. And making that choice is really a growth moment for him, that it both spins him out into crisis, but it allows him to pass through that crisis and become a better person because of it. Like he's grown enough to go through all the troubles he has to go through.
I can talk to you all day. This is so intriguing, perhaps because you're such an intriguing and real person, and you have experiences that are familiar to experiences that I've had. For example, I believe I have ADHD because I remember just daydreaming in school and not being as accomplished as I could because of those daydreaming. And then a number of things happened and it led to my depression. So I am grateful that I am speaking to someone so accomplished that I believe we have some similarities. Thank you so much for coming and sharing and just being this authentic you, this relaxed, person that I can talk to. I appreciate you.
Well, shucks. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Now, please share with the audience where they can pick up your book and where they can connect with you, because I feel like we have this connection. So I know listeners are feeling the same way. There's somebody out there feeling like they want to be more part of your tribe. How do they connect with you?
Great. Well, yeah, the books are available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere you can buy books online. They should be available. There's ebooks and paperback. It's a trilogy. So the first book is the yellow one. It's called Infant Terrible Opening Acts. That's the beginning of the journey when the band is really spinning out and a lot of chaos there. Second book is Headliner. It's the pink cover. This is where the relationships start to really come in and the characters develop together, and the problems really begin to intensify.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third book is Showstopper, which has a blue cover, and that's when the biggest crises all come together and the biggest growth happens. So yeah, they're on Amazon. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm the only Gwydhar on the internet. So if you can spell it, which is Gwydhar, you can find me. And I also have a website, gwydhar.com. There was one more part to that question, and now I've forgotten it.
I think I just wanted to see how they can connect with you and how they can get the book.
Yeah, I mean, and please do reach out through social media. I love
Yeah.
responding to people, and would love to hear what people think of the books if you check them out.
Are you on Instagram?
I am, but only in a very cursory way. I have an account, I just don't support it.
To view, but not to share.
To view, yeah, you can message me through Instagram. Like I say, I'm the only Gwydhar on the internet, and I'll eventually respond. I'm just slow because I don't check it all that often. So.
Thank you so much. Before you go, there are 3 questions that I love to ask my guests, and so please stay so they can ask you these questions and learn a little bit more about you and what you plan to do for the future.
Sure.
What's one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
Well, the answer to this one, I was giving it a lot of thought, is that so no matter who you are and how successful you are and how secure and happy your childhood was, you will probably benefit from therapy. And that's because life is just a constant evolution. And if it's not, you're probably not doing it right. Like, you need to continually evolve and grow.
Yes.
And even if you have great skills, you will ultimately be confronted by a problem for which those skills are not the right skill set, and you'll need to either adapt them or learn new ones. And that's where a therapeutic professional, which doesn't necessarily have to be a clinical therapist, it could be a clergy person or a mentor, or someone who's just detached and caring and can guide you, will really be helpful in your life. And so don't feel like, oh, it's only if you're in crisis or depression or whatnot that you could benefit from it. It's also good in everyday life.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't agree with you more. I believe that I am who I am today because of a number of things, but most importantly, because of therapy. I was in a very dark place and therapy saved me. But I wish I knew before that you should go and get regular checkups about, seek your therapy on a regular basis so that you don't have to venture into those dark places on your own without skills and tools, so that you're not knee deep in depression or whatever mental struggles you're going through before you get the help that you need, before you get the tools that you need to help you through these tough times. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I second that. I agree with you. Oh my goodness, girl.
That's the hardest time to find a therapist, is when you're in crisis. So like, if you can find one in advance and just build a relationship, so when problems come up, it's so much easier.
So the same way you would, and some people will not, but most people will go see a physician or a practitioner on a regular basis, maybe once a year, to get a full checkup. And I think you should see a therapist, when you're feeling healthy and all your mind is all, together, once a year, just to build a relationship and get some tools. And so that when you do have crisis, you don't feel weirded out, like, oh my goodness, I need this. And then you're fighting with yourself, or you don't even think about it at all.
And it's just someone that can reflect back to you what you're already putting out into the world in a way that gives you perspective. Like, if you're saying something to yourself and then you say it to another person and they're like, that's messed up, don't say that. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be saying that to myself.
Exactly.
You wouldn't think that on your own. You need someone else to offer that perspective.
Yes, thank you so much. This is Gwydhar Gebien, y'all. We have one more question for her, but so far she's enlightened us in so many ways. What's a bold move you'd like to make in the future?
Well, this one is one that I've been thinking about a lot, because I'm at a point in my life where mentally I imagine it as a fork in the road, and trying to decide which path to take. Because on one hand, I've always been following this path that's very career oriented,
Mhm.
And increasingly, I'm feeling this draw towards a path that's more about finding a place where I can really become part of a community and put down roots.
Ah,
And I, currently live in a big city, and there are many, many people around me, but it's so hard to build meaningful connections with them. It's just too many people. And it may even be a physical move to a place where I can make more meaningful connections than just contacts and network. But that's a big shift in gears that I'm still working on figuring out how to navigate. So
I'm going to send you an invitation to Authors Quantum Weekend, where authors gather together and just quantum leap their life. So I'll send you an invitation to that, and maybe you can be a part of that tribe, of that group, so that you can, feel as like you're getting something back, some support. You're getting, support. So please remind me to give you some information about Authors Quantum Weekend.
that sounds great. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for writing this book. And one last question. I don't want to leave without asking, how did you come up with the name of the title of this book?
Well, so it's an expression that's used to describe a person who's known for saying inopportune or inappropriate remarks, or shocking and outrageous behavior, or an artist who is like unorthodox and innovative, which really all those elements really spoke to me as being related to this character, both in a provocative way and in a chaotic way.
Enfant Terrible. Please look for it. It's on Amazon and a lot of different online stores. Please go out and support Gwydhar and get a few. It's probably something that you can give as a gift. So please consider that and just be supportive. Join her world and be supportive.
Thank you so much.
Now, the book that I mentioned, I didn't mention a book, but I was remembering a scenario for a book that I read in high school.
Uh-huh.
And yes, it came to me. It is Othello.
Othello. Okay, yep, I can see that.
It's Othello. I used to, it's part of high school literature for you to read Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've read a few Shakespeare books in high school and couldn't quite remember which one, but it's Othello. The handkerchief is one of those. It was a symbol that portrays love and, I guess, betrayal. And that was what I remembered.
Right, yeah. And it's Iago that plants the seeds of deception.
Yes. And he bought into it and started to look for deception. And what he found was, of course, what he was looking for.
Yep, exactly, yeah.
Thank you again for coming and sharing and just being enlightening us and giving us more perspective on, what's going on with people who are going through hard times and trying to have this balance and still doing your work and still sharing and being a part of society and being a contributing part of society. Thank you. You're an amazing woman, and I appreciate you sharing all of your flaws and all of your perfections, all of your excellence, all of your flaws and all of your excellence.
Thank you.
And please come back again.
Great, would love to.
If there's anyone out there who's looking to write a book and you just don't know where to start, please send me an email at authordnicholson@gmail.com. And let's talk and see how I can help you get this book idea out of your head and onto paper.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.